Salam, peace be upon you. My name is Muhammad Laik Siddiqui, the father of Holoface. Let me begin part 9 the way I want you to feel it. Imagine a courtroom where anyone can walk in, point at anyone, and shout, guilty. No evidence, no rules, no judge, no legal system, just loud confidence. That is what most human talk about reality sounds like. People say, quantum mechanics proves consciousness. People say, the universe began because. People say, this medicine works. People say, this is the true nature of existence. And when you ask the simplest question, based on what exactly? They wave their hands. They speak as if the whole universe is their courtroom, and every claim has automatic permission. Episode 14 refuses that. Episode 14 is not a storyteller. Episode 14 is a compiler. It either compiles a claim into certified public structure, or it refuses the claim and prints a refusal certificate with reasons. And today, part 9 is where we enforce the one rule that kills mythology at birth. No passport, no claim. Not no passport, no confidence. No passport, no claim. Because the passport is not paperwork. The passport is jurisdiction. It is what makes a statement even eligible to be discussed as public knowledge. Now let me anchor us, quickly, in what we have already locked. We are not doing cosmology, not doing time, not doing dynamics, not doing meaning. We have one primitive, phi. I say phi like phi, and what it means here is simple. The permission for comparisons. The cyclic comparability field. Phi is a phase-like assignment to events, but absolute phi is mute. Only differences in phi inside the licensed window can be public. We have the extraction oath from part 6. We extract structure from comparisons or we refuse, and we document both. We have the public meaning rule from part 7. Only differences speak. If a claimed observable changes when you add a constant offset everywhere, if it depends on absolute anchoring, it was never public. And we have the raw data object from part 8, comparator graphs, events and comparison edges. No smuggled geometry, no hidden coordinates, no spacetime containers sneaking through the back door. Now comes the next step. Even with difference-only meaning and comparator graphs, we still face the oldest human failure. People state claims without saying where they were standing. They describe the mural on the wall, but they refuse to tell you which corner of the room they were looking from. And then they fight anyone who saw a different part of the mural. So part 9 is the rule that forces everyone to show their position, their lens, their limits, their exclusions, their resolution, their uncertainty, and their ceiling. That is the passport. Let me say the co-insight plainly. A claim without a passport is a naked claim. A naked claim is not wrong. It is worse. It is undefined. Undefined means it is not even eligible to be tested, compared, certified, debated, or used. Now I want you to feel how normal this is in everyday life. If I tell you, I'm going to Kabul, you will naturally ask, from where? Because to Kabul means nothing without the starting point. London to Kabul is one thing. Herat to Kabul is another. A starting point is not bureaucracy. It's meaning. If I tell you, this soup is salty, you will naturally ask, compared to what? Compared to yesterday's soup? Compared to your taste? compared to a recipe? Without the reference, salty is just air. If I tell you, this picture is blurry, you will ask, on what camera? In what light? At what distance? Because blur is not an absolute property. It is a relationship between an instrument, a scene, and conditions. So why do we tolerate naked claims in science, philosophy, and big theories? We tolerate them because we are addicted to the feeling of certainty. Part 9 breaks that addiction. Now let me define what a passport is in the simplest language possible. A passport is the answer to 7 ordinary questions. 1. Where exactly did you look? 2. What tool did you use to look? 3. How did you use it? 4. What did you ignore or remove? 5. How well could you see? 6. How sure are you? 7. What would count as someone else seeing the same thing? That's it. Those 7 answers are the passport. And in episode 14, the passport is not optional. It is not helpful context. It is the entry ticket. No passport, the compiler refuses to even start. Now I'm going to translate this into the episode 14 language without drowning you in symbols. The raw input is a comparator graph. Think of it like this. You have dots, events, and you have lines, comparisons between events. A line does not mean distance. It does not mean time. It does not mean space. It means these two events were compared in some licensed way, and we have a recorded comparison result. The passport is the label attached to that graph, and attached to every claim extracted from it, that says what those dots and lines really represent operationally. Because a line might come from a thermometer comparison, or a telescope pixel comparison, or a voltage difference comparison, or a brain electrode comparison, or a social survey comparison. Same abstract structure, comparisons, different passports. So the passport tells us which world we are actually talking about. Now, in our formal words, a passport includes window, instrument lineage, protocol, masks and excisions, ceilings like Nmax, coherence threshold, I call it gamma, uncertainty budget, replication conditions. Let me unpack each in everyday language. First, the window. A window is simply what part of reality you are looking at and what part you are not looking at. If I open a small window in a wall and look outside, I might see a tree. I might conclude the world is made of trees. That would be insane. But it's the same mistake we make in science when we forget the window. A window has boundaries. The passport must state those boundaries. In practice, the window can be a time slice on your instrument recording, a region of your microscope image, a range of frequencies you decided to trust, a group of people in your study, a redshift range in cosmology, a set of trials in an experiment. Whatever it is, it must be stated. No window statement means you are pretending you have a view from nowhere. Second, instrument lineage. This is just honesty about the tool. A kitchen scale that has not been calibrated in 5 years is not the same as a laboratory balance certified yesterday. A phone microphone is not the same as a studio microphone. An EEG cap is not the same as a brain implant electrode. Instrument lineage is what tool, which model, which calibration, what known biases, what maintenance history. If you don't know, you say you don't know, and then your claim has a different status. Third, protocol. This is how you use the tool. If you take a photo at night with a long exposure, You get a different image than a photo at noon with a fast shutter. The camera didn't change, the protocol did. In science, protocol includes how comparisons were performed, what preprocessing steps were applied, what filters you used, what you averaged, what you normalized, what thresholds you chose. A claim without protocol is like a recipe that says, cook it normally. It cannot be replicated. Fourth, masks and excisions. This sounds fancy, but it's very human. When you take a selfie, you might crop out the messy room behind you. That crop is an excision. You might apply a filter to hide noise. That's a mask. In science, masks and excisions are necessary. Instruments have glitches, data has artifacts. Some regions are unreliable. But the rule is if you removed something, you must say exactly what you removed and why. Otherwise, you can prove anything by deleting inconvenient parts. So the passport must record what you excluded, how you excluded it, and what would happen if you didn't. Fifth, how well could you see? This is where episode 14 becomes brutally honest. Every instrument has a resolution limit. Every window has a clarity threshold. In our language, we track two key ideas: coherence, I call it gamma, and ceiling, I call it Nmax. Gamma is the legibility score. If the signal is too scrambled, too noisy, too aliased, you cannot reliably extract structure. Nmax is the depth limit. It means how fine a structural detail can you legitimately claim from this data. Let me give you a simple analogy. Imagine you're reading a street sign through fog. At some fog level, you can read the big letters, but not the small ones. You might confidently say, this is Baker Street, but you cannot confidently say, this is number 221B. Gamma is how readable the sign is at all, and max is how detailed your reading can be. So the passport must declare the fog level and the maximum readable detail. Without that, people claim microscopic truths from blurry data. Sixth, uncertainty. This is not weakness. This is the price tag of a claim. If I say the temperature is 21 degrees Celsius, the real statement is 21 plus or minus something. And the something depends on the instrument and conditions. Uncertainty is not an apology. It is part of the meaning. Episode 14 requires uncertainty lineage, where uncertainty comes from and how it flows through the extraction pipeline. If you can't track it, your output is not certified. It might be a hint, but it is not public structure. Seventh, replication conditions. This is what makes knowledge public. If I have a dream and it never repeats, it is private. If I do an experiment and it repeats under stated conditions, it becomes public. Replication conditions answer: what would a different lab need to do to see the same pattern? What would count as failure? Which differences in setup are allowed and which break the claim? Now let me pause and give you the simplest carry line of part 9 again. No passport, no claim. Now let me show you why this is not bureaucracy. This is the opposite of bureaucracy. It is cleanliness. Think of a receipt. When you buy something, you get a receipt with date, item, price, tax. Without that receipt, you can argue forever. I paid. No, you didn't. There's no anchor. A passport is the receipt of a scientific claim. It shows what you bought the claim with. What data, what tool, what conditions, what uncertainty. Now I want to show you how passports solve one of the biggest confusions in human history. Most disagreements are not about reality. They are about mismatched passports. Two people argue. Coffee helps concentration. No, it doesn't. And then you look closer. One person means espresso in the morning, after sleep, on a math task, in adults who already drink coffee. The other means coffee at night, in teenagers, on a memory task, in people sensitive to caffeine. They are not contradicting each other. They are describing different windows. Passports turn loud argument into precise comparison. Now let me climb across scales and show you this working everywhere. First, the everyday scale. I say, this room is quiet. Passport questions. Quiet compared to what? Measured by what? My ears or a decibel meter? At what time of day? Did we close the windows? Did we exclude the hum of the refrigerator? If I don't answer those, quiet is poetry, not public. Second, the biological scale. Someone says, gene X causes disease Y. Passport questions. In which species? Which strain? Which environment? What diet? At what age? What measurement method? What percentage of individuals? How big is the effect? What are the confounders? What did you exclude? Without passports, causes becomes a weapon. With passports, it becomes a bounded claim. Third, the brain and mind scale. Someone says, meditation reduces stress. Passport questions. Which type of meditation? What population? How long? How measured? Cortisol, self-report, heart rate variability. Compared to what control group? What does stress mean operationally? What was excluded? Without passports, it becomes religion. With passports, it becomes research. Fourth, the quantum scale. Someone says, entanglement proves non-local reality. Passport questions. What exact experiment? What detectors? What timing resolution? What loopholes closed? What background noise? What statistical threshold? What window selection? Without passports, it becomes metaphysics. With passports, it becomes certified structure claims in precise windows. Fifth, the cosmological scale. Someone says, the expansion rate of the universe is 73. Passport questions. Which distance ladder? Which redshift range? Which instruments? Which calibration? Which corrections? What systematic uncertainties? What assumptions are masks? How stable across windows? This is not nitpicking. This is why the Hubble tension exists. Different passports produce different estimates. The disagreement is not solved by shouting truth. It is solved by passport comparison. Now let me put the episode 14 gates around this, because this is where rigor becomes enforcement. Part 9 installs gates. Gates are simple. If you don't pass, the compiler refuses. Gate 1, the passport gate. Does the claim have a complete passport? If not, refusal. Gate 2, well-formedness. Is the passport specific enough that someone else can actually apply it? If it says we use the usual method, refusal. Gate 3, auditability. Can another competent person check your instrument lineage, redo your window selection, reproduce your protocol, test your masks? If not, refusal. Now let me show you what refusal looks like, because refusal is the heart of episode 14, honesty. A refusal is not you are wrong. A refusal is you did not define your claim enough for it to be public. Example refusal. Claim attempted. This brain pattern is the signature of consciousness. Failure. Passport incomplete. Missing. Window boundaries, protocol details, uncertainty budget, replication conditions. Status. Refused. Action. Provide passport or reclassify as speculative interface claim. That refusal is not an insult. It is the compiler doing its job. Now, because we are in episode 14, I also need to enforce our difference-only discipline. So the passport must also align with part 7. Only differences speak. That means, within the passport, claims must be stated as comparisons, not absolutes. Not phi is this absolute value, but phi differs by this amount between these events under this window with this uncertainty. And we stress test invariance. If we add a constant to phi everywhere, our extracted observable must not change. If it changes, it means you secretly anchored an absolute value somewhere. That is forbidden. Now, I promised you I would fully adapt any symbols for audio, so I'm going to say one key formal line out loud in a way anyone can follow. Here's the public meaning test we carry into passports. If an observable depends on absolute phi, it is not public. In math language, people write phi goes to phi plus c. That means add the same constant c everywhere. So I say it like this. Imagine I add the same offset to every reading everywhere, like turning the volume knob up by the same amount on all recordings. If the pattern I claim changes, then my pattern was actually depending on where I set the 0. And if it depends on where I set the 0, it was never public. Public means any reasonable person using their own 0 can still confirm the same differences. Now let me integrate the strongest metaphors from both versions so you can feel this in your bones. First metaphor, the mural. Reality is a huge mural. Each experiment is a small window cut into the wall. If you refuse to state where your window is, you are basically claiming your small patch is the whole mural. That is how science becomes mythology. Second metaphor, the market receipt. Claims are like purchases. If you cannot show the receipt, what you paid with, where, when, under what conditions, your claim might still be true, but it is not eligible for public trust. Third metaphor, the courtroom. A claim is a verdict. A passport is jurisdiction plus evidence record. No jurisdiction, no trial. No passport, no claim. Now I want to say the prediction of part 9 in simple human language. If this passport discipline is real, then two things will happen. 1. Fake certainty will collapse. People will stop saying science proves when they mean this study under these conditions suggests. Not because they become weaker, because they become honest. 2. Disagreements will become solvable. Instead of endless debate, we will diagnose which passport fields differ and whether the difference explains the disagreement. Now let me give the falsifier, the thing that would prove part 9 is unnecessary or wrong. If someone can produce a stable public scientific fact that has no window, no instrument conditions, no protocol, no uncertainty, no replication boundaries, if it truly stands without any passport, then passport discipline would be overkill. But here is the reason I believe that will never happen. Every statement that touches the world touches a measurement. Every measurement is done by a tool. Every tool has limits. Every limit is a window. Every window needs a passport. Even mathematics needs passports, because statements like 2 plus 2 equals 4 quietly assume a number system. In modular arithmetic, 2 plus 2 equals 1. So even in pure logic, context matters. So the falsifier is clean, but I expect it never appears. Now let me describe the audit artifact, what we actually write down, because episode 14 is nothing if not auditable. For every accepted claim, we write a passport record into the ledger. It includes a unique passport ID, the window description, the instrument lineage, the protocol steps, masks and excisions, coherence score gamma, the ceiling Nmax, the uncertainty budget, the invariance stress tests, replication instructions, and the revocation conditions. For every refused claim, we write a refusal certificate. Which gate failed, why it failed, what would fix it, or whether it is outside scope and must be deferred to later layers. Now listen carefully. This is where episode 14 becomes terrifyingly powerful. Because once you enforce passports, you can no longer hide behind beautiful words. You can no longer claim fundamental truth without showing your window. You can no longer claim derived without showing your pipeline. You can no longer claim universal without demonstrating invariance across many passports. So part 9 doesn't just organize science. It disciplines human ego. Now I want to give you a simple live exercise because I want you inside the story, not watching it from outside. Pick any claim you heard recently. Any claim. This diet is healthy. This politician is lying. This study proves. This is what consciousness is. This is the real nature of reality. Now ask, where is the passport? What window? What evidence? What tool? What protocol? What uncertainty? What exclusions? What replication? If the passport is missing, you don't need to shout false. You just say one sentence. That claim is naked. It might be interesting, but it is not public yet. That single habit will make you harder to manipulate. Because most manipulation works by forcing naked claims into your mind as if they were certified. Now, because this is a holophase part, I must keep our triunity reminder present without smuggling time, space, or motion as primitives. So here is how passports relate to omega, kappa, and nu in everyday language. When we later extract structure from differences, we will be able to read it in 3 simultaneous ways. Omega, cadence, how quickly differences change across comparisons inside the window. Kappa, texture, what pattern the differences form. Nu, drift, how patterns appear transported across the comparison network. But in episode 14, these are not time, space, motion. They are readouts of the same differentiated structure. And passports define the window in which those readouts are even meaningful. No passport means your omega kappa nu talk is ungrounded, refused. Now I need to speak the revocation clause clearly, because this is how we kill drift. If a certified output is later found to be missing passport fields, or if the passport is not auditable, or if the claim cannot be reproduced under the stated conditions, or if the window was misrepresented, then the certification is revoked and moved to the negative archive. That is not punishment. That is the immune system of public knowledge. Now let me give you the carry, the one sentence you should remember when you forget everything else. No passport, no claim. And let me expand it into a second sentence, because I want it to land in your everyday life. If someone won't tell you where they were standing, they are not telling you knowledge. They are selling you a story. That's part 9. We have now established scientific jurisdiction. We have said every claim must show its papers. From here on, the extraction engine becomes real. Because once passports exist, the compiler can finally do what it was built to do. Take windowed comparisons, apply gates, certify what survives, refuse what doesn't, and keep an honest public record of both. Part 9 complete. Audit artifact. The passport registry plus the refusal ledger entries for every naked claim. Revocation clause. Revoke immediately if a passport is missing, unauditable, or inconsistent with the claimed extraction path. And carry this with you. No passport, no claim. Always, peace be upon you.